to English Podcasts, Professional English, the English you use at work. For more information, visit english-podcast.com. Hi there, Chris.
Hi, Sue.
So here we are today, sitting in the park. It's lovely. We've got the fresh air, a little bit of sun, people all around us. And this is a great antidote to stress, which is our topic of today.
Exactly. That's what they say. Getting out into the fresh air, doing some exercise is one of the best things to combat stress.
Absolutely. And have you got some figures on that?
Yeah, well, I've got some trends on workplace stress. You probably didn't know this. In fact, it's quite surprising when you look at it. Is 80% of workers overall in the world feel stressed at work.
Lot. That's a lot of people.
Well, there's other things which are a little bit shocking. Is that 70% of doctor visits are from people who go for stress.
And what kind of symptoms do they have of stress?
Well, those are just the people going to the doctors. It goes on after that because 85% of serious illnesses are provoked by stress. So things like cancer, things like heart attacks, things like blood pressure problems, these are all directly related to stress. Yeah. But to answer your questions about the symptoms, they can start small. But I think they're little warners for people who could, end up, hopefully not, but could end up being, critically stressed. And one is headaches. People also suffer from sleep problems. They can't get to sleep. The problem with this is that it then sort of knocks onto relationship problems, high blood pressure, alcohol and substance use, people taking prescription drugs, for example, sleeping tablets, etc. And it can start with little things such as skipping lunch.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Then overeating, bad foods. People tend to like to have either a caffeine or a sugar fix.
That's right. I know. When you go to work culture, it's caffeine. You get it in straight away.
Exactly, and they're not things that actually help stress. People suffer from neck pain, eye strain, irritability, fatigue.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that also backache.
Backache as well.
Backache. I don't know the numbers, but so many people are off work with a backache.
Yeah.
Which is symptomatic of stress.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also a lot of people also who suffer from stress suffer from a lack of energy and motivation. So it becomes a little bit of a vicious circle.
Yeah, absolutely. And but that's for the individual. But what about for the company? Are there any signs that a company, from the global point of view, could say, oh yeah, we've got stress in our company?
Yeah, I think if a company has a high turnover of people coming in and leaving, if they've got a lot of sick leave.
Just got to say, we're in the park here. We've got some people going by, a little child on a little motorbike. Yeah, it's
He's working his stress out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So if people are taking a lot of sick leave and also long-term sickness, the problem comes about often because there is a culture of long hours in the company. Very often you'll see, I know that some of my clients, if the boss is in, then everybody stays in, their car's in the car park until 8-9 o'clock at night. A lot of companies as well, because of this type of culture, they actually manage time. That is, they're there for the time and not for projects or tasks done. If you look at it in terms of project or task management, then if the task is done, then people can go home. It's quite a motivator to get stuff done well and have some time on their own. There's a reduced engagement from people and a reduced quality of work. Now, reduced quality of work can also be another stressor, because if people are producing work which they know is not up to their general quality that they could produce, this has a knock-on effect on their self-esteem. This causes stress as well. Another thing is that people, in terms of work emails, if you're getting work emails, or if it's acceptable that you send work emails in the evening or at weekends, then you know that your company culture is probably not the best.
Yes.
Should be a break with that, because something's going to suffer, whether it's the person or the relationships.
But Chris, why do you think people send emails at 2 o'clock in the morning or on a Sunday? Why do you think they do it? Is that because they're so busy, or because they want to be seen to be being busy? What do you think is the cause of that?
Well, I can only sort of reference the last company I worked in, is that people would send emails at midnight or on weekends or Sundays, and it was generally, maybe I'm being a bit cynical, but generally they weren't doing too much, and they were trying to show that they were doing, overstretching, and they weren't really. I thought it was unacceptable, but and I stay with that. Another reason another sign of a stressful work environment is being given unrealistic objectives.
Oh, absolutely.
Something that stretches. It's good to have stretch objectives, sure, we're all agreed, but to have things which are totally unrealistic is not there. And one of the reasons that people get stressed as well is because there is not a culture of saying no.
Yeah.
Everybody accepts everything. You're asked to prepare a presentation for tomorrow morning for your boss, for example. Nobody asks the boss, well, are you actually going to do it tomorrow morning? And there's no sort of negotiation of, okay, if I get this done tonight, can I come in late tomorrow? There's none of this. They just accept it and they do it.
Yeah.
And it's also they call it FIFO, first in, first out.
Yes.
So it becomes a pile of work, and this one goes on the top.
Yes.
So there's lots of things which may have more urgency, which are going down the pile and taking more time, which causes stress again.
Yeah, and what about the? So, what are the factors exactly of this stress?
Well, a lot of it is a heavy workload.
Yeah.
Lack of support. Change is another big one. People generally don't like change, or they do like change if it's communicated well. Basically, humans are pretty simple, organisms. If they can see that the change will actually help them, they'll do it. But very often it's not presented that way.
But I've seen change, let's say, in the sense that someone's worked very hard on a project, spent lots and lots of time, and then suddenly it's not needed. That is so demotivating.
Sure. Would that go with unrealistic objectives? Possibly.
Well, I think it's to do with change and the objectives not laid out properly. But projects do change in a company.
Of course they do.
So you have to adapt. But I've seen people really put loads of time into quite rigorous work.
Yeah.
And it's not needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Well, a lot of that is due to poor leadership.
Yeah.
But there's other things that cause stress in the workplace. Money can do. If people are not earning enough money, I think it's number one stressor is lack of money. Yeah. If people have decent salaries, then you have to look at other things, obviously.
Yeah, I suppose if you're getting paid a decent salary, you are expected to put in a few extras, let's say.
I think it really depends on the work culture.
Yeah.
There are some work cultures that really work on task and project management. Is that get this done and you're out the door, you're at home. If it isn't that, if it's long hours and a heavy workload, then work-life balance is gonna, is gonna suffer, and then it brings relationship problems, and relationship problems do not help stress. Another thing is office politics. You may have.
Very much, and I think this is something that can really upset people a lot.
Absolutely.
And who wants to go to work in an environment where someone's saying things behind your back, or someone it's really not a nice environment. And also a company that I think we both know very well, it has a kind of a blame culture, which if you don't do it right, someone blames you immediately. It's never their responsibility.
Absolutely.
And that's a horrible way to spend 10 hours a day.
Yeah, I know, but I mean a lot of it is to do with poor leadership, because the top management should be actually leading this and making it so that people are not feeling blamed, are not being thought of as a 24-hour availability resource for the company. People need to be given some sort of career path. If they've got opportunities for growth, it's great. If you stop people, it's very difficult, because that becomes another change.
And you said the word resource, and that's a word I've noticed in my working life. We've stopped being a member of staff to being called a resource, and I think that has changed mentalities completely.
Sure.
It's not so personal. You're just a resource, and people can be moved around, and they are just a resource, as opposed to being a team member, a member of staff.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the positive and the negative of that is that some people actually embrace change. some people have a real problem with change. And I remember listening to Mike Cannon-Brookes, who was one of the CEOs of Atlassian, an Australian company, and he was asked what was the biggest business mistake that he ever made, and he said was keeping people in the same place for too long. So, you know, it really depends on the nature of the business. It also, you know, if the leadership of the company is one of growth, one of learning, etc., then these type of things very rarely happen, in fact, and the research is out there. You know, if you're getting people to, you know, if you're trying to like milk every last hour of the day out of somebody and not actually getting much productivity, then you have to ask yourself, you know, what the hell is the leadership of the company doing?
Yeah. So that's covered all those kind of factors, but this must have a real cost in terms of pounds, shillings and pence, or dollars and cents, or euros and cents.
It sure does.
Yeah.
And, you know, my question would be, is why wouldn't a company train their people on managing stress and, you know, look after their well-being, whether it's in, you know, the way the office is set out, the way that communication is done, the way that, you know, people are given, you know, very, very clear idea of what they're doing, because that's another thing which we haven't mentioned, and I've noticed this in some companies and also in the company that I used to work with, is that when you have job descriptions which are unclear, this can lead to a lot of stress.
Absolutely.
Nobody knows where they can go, there's lines of demarcation, etc. Big generator of stress. But we'll probably hit on that in another podcast, but this one, we'll go into the costs. If we look at medical costs, we've spoken about, you know, illnesses, etc. Stressed workers cost twice as much in medical costs as people who are not stressed. Okay, that's difficult to quantify, but it's about 200 to 300 billion a year.
This is globally.
Globally, yeah.
Globally.
Yeah. That's a hell of a lot of money.
Oh gosh, yes.
Absenteeism due to depression, which is obviously a far scale of stress, works out at 23.3 billion a year, over 23 billion dollars a year. Absenteeism, lost productivity, and 13 million working days are lost due to stress every year in companies, and it goes up.
Yes.
And we will do a podcast about COVID-19, and we might see something in there that will maybe impact on this.
I'm sure of it.
And we also find that 50% increase in voluntary turnover. That is, people want to leave a company because they're feeling stressed.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
So it's massive.
Absolutely massive. And I think you're going to do a questionnaire on this.
Yep, there's going to be a questionnaire about managing stress and COVID-19. There's going to be one.
Yeah.
There's going to be one on the signs of a stressful workplace, and there's going to be another one about measuring your workplace stress and evaluating your own stress levels.
Well, I look forward to that.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we're sitting here and really enjoying the sunshine.
There's a game of pétanque just next to us.
Really enjoying seeing people, and I feel pretty relaxed about all this.
Me too.
Good.
Thank you. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Join us again at english-podcast.com and subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes. And if you have an idea for a podcast or a blog, please get in contact with us through the site at english-podcasts.com.